Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of The Rundown. I am your host, Craig DeLuz.
I'm your co-host, Mike Tworski, and happy Wednesday to everybody.
Hump Day!
Oh, Mike. Guess what day it is?
Come on, Mike. Hump
Hump
Day.
day.
Hump Day. Woo-woo.
We need to bring that one back. We got to get that commercial back.
We have got to get that one back. Maybe
That'll
we'll
go
just
right there with Scoop. There it is. Those are my two
Scoop,
favorites.
there it is. Dude, that is my favorite. That is my favorite all-time commercial right now. Just
It is great. It's wonderful. Scoop.
every time it comes on, I start dancing. Scoop, there it is.
The look on the daughter's face when she realizes dad's not on her team and he's going to start dancing and she bails on him. Classic.
Classic.
Yeah.
If you don't get that, you're not a parent.
No. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Well, Mike, hey, look, as we know, tons of stuff going on in the news today, so let's jump right into it. All right, now we're going to start off with a story that deals with, we know that we've been dealing with this whole last year, this whole issue of quote unquote defunding the police, right? You have major metropolitan cities, or let's just put it this way, you have cities run by Democrats, by blue states that are all many of them are looking to defund the police and cut police funding, knowing in many cases that they're already underfunded. In fact, there's a dude named Tim McDonald who has a lyric that basically says, order food and call the police and order food and see which one shows up first. I mean, that's how bad funding for the police has been. But in this particular case, Mike, what they're pointing to is the fact that in major cities, in cities where they have voted to defund the police, there's almost a direct tie to a significant increase in the homicide rate. And let me just share some of these statistics with you. So if you go here, one of the things they noted, they said in 9 cities that made the most dramatic cuts to police budgets, homicides rose by nearly 68%. 68%. Portland, Oregon homicide rate sort of staggering 1,900% in 2021 with 20 killings compared to 1 during the first 3 months of 2020. Austin, Texas cut $20 million or 23% from its budget. And then shifted another $80 million by moving certain services to other departments. Guess what? They saw a 35% rise. Same thing happened in Philadelphia. Same thing happened in Minneapolis. It's happening in city after city, Mike.
Yeah, you see it going on. And guess what kind of cities, folks? Democrat, liberal-controlled cities. That's the only place this is going on. I know you said, wait, Craig, you said Austin, Texas. How can we have that in Texas? Well, Austin is a predominantly, it's the capital. It's a very liberal city there. It really is. Now, Craig, I know that the city of Los Angeles was one of the first cities to reduce the budget at the police department. Portland was another one, very quick, and so was Minneapolis. And we see in all 3 of those cities, we have seen the request to have the police budgets reinstated. Sorry, our little crazy experiment didn't work. Homicides have gone up. Can we get some money back? And the police officers are going, hey, listen, either way, we're out. We're going somewhere else where we still have, qualified immunity to protect us and our rights as individuals. And we're going on to other jobs where we are protected, perhaps in, I don't know, conservative towns and cities that are run by conservative governments.
Well, people who once again respect and appreciate the rule of law, because you have places like in California, and we don't talk about a lot of the petty crimes. They talk about a decrease in those crimes.
Right.
They're talking about they actually during this time we've seen a decrease in that. Well, the reason why we've seen the decrease is because we've taken a whole lot of things that were crimes and we've now made them non-crimes. A lot of things that were felonies are no longer felonies. We've literally decriminalized crime in many places across the country, including here in the state of California. And then we wonder why we're seeing the sorts of property crimes. We're seeing a rise in murders. Well, guess what? That's because we not only don't respect the law, once again, crime is no longer crime, but then we also don't respect those who are called on to enforce those crimes. We don't respect and empower them to be able to do that. And so then we wonder why there is lawlessness.
Listen, we saw it in Baltimore also, where the state attorney there, she came out and said that we're no longer going to be prosecuting, low-level drug crimes, misdemeanor crimes for marijuana, simple theft crimes, misdemeanor theft crimes, or misdemeanor, battery crimes. We're not going to be enforcing them or prosecuting them because we don't have the resources. So the police are no longer answering those calls because they know it's not going to get, they can't make the arrest. They're not going to have any prosecution. And then they have the nerve, the city has the nerve to turn around a few months later and says, oh, wow, we're down on misdemeanor drug crimes, misdemeanor battery crimes, and misdemeanor theft crimes. You're not down on them. You're not reporting them anymore because you're not going to them. It's absolute, ridiculous the way they set this up. Oh, look, the crime is down on these three categories. No, you're ignoring them now.
Right. Well, the challenge, Mike, is that when you have absolutely no respect for the rule of law, you have absolutely no respect for even the highest rule of law. I mean, they have an example coming from the highest elective office in the country, if not in the world, who refuses to respect the highest law of our land, which in this case happens to be the Constitution. You have President Biden, who is actually like, I don't know if you wondered, I don't know if you caught this, but a lot of people were really angry and frustrated. A lot of people, anti-gunners, were mad because they're like, why isn't Biden going after guns? And he talked about timing and all of that. Well, one of the things that they're trying to do in the Biden administration is they're trying to craft executive orders that cannot be undone, or they believe cannot be undone, whether it's by the next president or by the courts. So in other words, they want to try and craft it in such a way that it will not, that it will be beyond judicial scrutiny, and that it will be beyond the scrutiny of future presidents. And one of those areas we talked about yesterday has to do with 80% lowers.
Yeah. Yeah, and listen, an 80% lower, there's a couple of different kinds out there that we're seeing controversy on. You have an AR style 80% lower. That's a piece of aluminum, 75, forged aluminum that's cut, and they have not cut out the trigger area for it. So you can't put a fire control group into it. You cannot make it shoot as it's purchased as an 80% lower. Then you have the 80% lowers, which are basically a Glock frame, and it's polymer, and you have to do some whittling away on some of the parts there, some of the holes in the trigger group to get it to work. If you're somebody that's handy, you could probably do one of the Glock polymer lowers. It's not that hard to do. The 80% AR lowers, however, though, listen, unless you've got an end mill and a CNC machine at your house, if you have 100 of them, you might get 2 of them right. If the tolerances are that tight, if you're off 1,000th of an inch, it will not work. It will not allow that fire control group to work. So just to give you a little rougher idea of what an 80% is, they can be built up into working firearms, which, by the way, is 100% legal to do in this country. You've always been able to make your own firearm. The law only restricts if you're going to make them and start selling them. You have to either have a dealer's license, or you have to, let's say you make one in a year from now, you don't like it, you have to put a serial number on it before it can be transferred to somebody else, just so it can be tracked, because that's what the law says, as it says now. But as far as building yourself at 80% lower, you can do it.
And that's the thing that they don't tell you. And, you and I were talking offline about how, they just, the very fact that the administration and the anti-gunners completely and utterly distort information and the truth about these firearms. For example, they want to tell you, well, 30% of the crime guns that they're getting are confiscated are in fact ghost guns. What they're not telling you is, in overwhelming percentage of the cases, the only crime that was committed was possession of it, because in California it has to have a serial number.
Right. Yeah. The article said 30% of firearms seized in California were ghost guns. Yeah. Well, guess what was wrong? Guess what the only illegal part of it was? Is that in California you can't have a ghost gun. The firearm itself is illegal, because the state of California has said you can't have that kind of firearm here, or the state of California will say it's illegal because you built it and never registered it. So people are paying attention to the federal law and following it, but California's much more oppressive firearms laws are the only thing that they have found to be illegal when in possession of these firearms. It's just, it's how it's reported. It's incredible media bias, Craig.
Well, it is. And it's in part of it. And the thing is that the administration, the anti-gunners know that they can just flat out lie because they know that they won't be fact checked. They know that the other side will not actually go after and look into or dig into the information that they're providing, because in many cases they are seen as, well, they're a public safety advocacy group, and they're not a political group. And the reality is they're political groups who are pushing a political agenda. And the fact that they know that they aren't going to be fact checked, well, why should they bother to tell the truth when they're never going to be checked on it? Providing misinformation in order to get people to do the thing they want them to do or do what they believe to be the right thing, they believe that's a moral good. And that's what Marxism is. That's what you read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. That's what he says. And once again, they feel like it's okay and they can get away with it.
Craig, the best quote I saw recently concerning this administration's aversion to the truth or misleading us was, this administration would never fracking lie to us.
Well, but it's not, once again, it's not just the administration. In many cases, it's the organizations that stand for, that work and partner with the administration. Groups like the ACLU, who claim to be all about free speech, and except unless it's speech that they hate or that they don't like, who claim to be all about privacy, but yet and still they don't respect the privacy of the people who donate to them, who communicate with them, and who work with them. Because guess what? They share that information and data with Facebook and other social media and internet groups, in order so that they can pitch you on giving them money. In other words, they're basically selling your data if you're, if you happen to follow the ACLU.
Yeah, Craig, I don't know if you are, I'm a member of the ACLU. I believe that an organization that fights for our civil rights, they're not the oldest civil rights fighting organization, by the way, either. But, listen, if somebody that fights for my civil rights, sure. Listen, I believe in all civil rights, every one of the rights we have in this country. And, the ACLU is somebody that does fight for it. Do they come up with the most ludicrous reasons and the most crazy rights to go after? Of course they do. But every time they do that, they set a precedent. Every time they get a First Amendment victory, guess what that does? That strengthens the resolve in the courts of the Second Amendment as well. It rolls uphill, it rolls downhill, wherever it wants to go with the realm of rights. There was a couple of years back where the ACLU took up a Second Amendment case because people's rights had been violated when it came to acknowledging the right of privacy to those that were firearms owners. And that they were standing around the ACLU headquarters, scratching their head, not believing they were doing what they were about to do.
Oh, during my time lobbying in California, we had a number of different measures where we actually worked with the ACLU because it was such an obvious, the piece of legislation was such an obvious infringement on fundamental rights that they could not be engaged. They could not stand up for it. So I'm not 100% anti-ACLU. My frustration, though, is that they say one thing and then they turn around in many cases and do another. In this particular case, they talk about your data being safe and protected and, not wanting privacy. Then at the same time, sharing your data and then providing the opt-out information in this very, very small thing, of writing where, click this in order to opt out, the same thing, the same sort of disclaimer that they would complain that major corporations or other entities or folks like Facebook don't do or should be doing, or they get mad at them because the print is too fine. And then on top of it, and what really made the story funny, or not funny or interesting, was the fact that then you had Facebook actually had over 500 million of their users' data was leaked, was sent out, was hacked. Phone numbers, email addresses, birth dates, all of this stuff that things you follow, all of that information was leaked by Facebook, meaning ACLU kind of gave your stuff to someone who can't even protect your stuff.
Yeah. Listen, clearly this with ACLU, a huge case of hypocrisy on their part for sure. With Facebook, yeah, 533 million people had their information exposed, and now I can't help but think, Craig, that are two of my aliases also now getting calls for extended car warranties that the information has been released because I've like everybody else, listen, have gotten into 2 or 3 Facebook identities because I copied a picture I found on Facebook and I posted that picture again on Facebook and I got suspended for it because I found it on Facebook and now it's
So you've been in Facebook.
Against
You've been
the
in
Facebook
Facebook
law,
jail.
you know.
I feel kind of bad because I've never like fully been in Facebook jail. I've been on Facebook probation before. Where you're not allowed to post. You can read and review, but you're not allowed to post. I mean, I've been on suspension. Anyway, I've been on probation. I've never actually been in Facebook jail. So you're actually like, a hardened Facebook criminal. You've had to assume another identity in order to re-enter the community. I mean, dude, yeah. You're hardcore, ain't you? You
I'm just a dude playing a dude playing a dude. So, it's crazy. Listen, I had one Facebook identity get executed. I mean, he's gone completely. They took him, just like, he doesn't exist anymore. He's gone. They took him away. It's ridiculous. I did the same on Twitter for a number of years also, where I would put out some nice political statements, waiting to sit time in the Twitter penalty box, and they would do it. But the entire time that President Trump was tweeting as President Trump, they ignored me. I got to say whatever the heck I wanted to. They had a whole team of everybody on the President Trump. The rest of us were out there, calling for mayhem, and they didn't care anymore.
Yeah, well, they had a bigger fish to fry at that point. The
biggest fish. Yeah, yep.
The biggest fish. Well, hey, so the next story I wanted to hit on, and this is one that I think you guys are going to find interesting. So every year, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, puts out data on causes of death. And one of the things that was interesting is so they always do it and they rank, okay, what are the causes of death? And so recently they actually put out data from 2018. And one of the things that was really interesting about it was they noted that falls, like people falling down, accidental falls, actually accounted for 126 times more deaths than any rifle. Not we're not talking AKs, we're not talking ARs, we're literally talking any rifle out there. Accidental falls accounted for 126 times more deaths than any rifle out there.
Craig, we clearly don't have enough laws restricting falls. We must outlaw falls in order to save the children. It's the only way. It's the only way we're going to survive.
Well, and that goes back to it is a lot of people don't realize that not only are there fewer deaths that are caused by rifles, but in terms of firearms used in crimes, about 2.5% to 3% of all rifles of any kind are used in crimes, right? So 2.5% to 3% of crimes involving firearms involve a rifle of any kind, let alone the centerfire, semi-automatic rifles, the scary, weapons of war that they are trying to ban.
Yeah, they're clearly out there on the run on their own, doing their own thing. With the way that the nation has portrayed, and we see this, for many years now, the anti-gunners, the gun controllers, they're trying to take the AR rifle system and say that it is the absolute weapon of war. It's there's no reason it's gonna kill on the streets. It goes in and leaves a hole this big when it comes out. It's horrible. The lies just are abound based on what you hear on the AR rifle system. Does it look alike to what our military uses? Yeah, sure it does. And guess what it does? It shoots one bullet for every one trigger pull. That's the same as my Remington does. It's the same as a Springfield does. The same as all my other semi-automatic rifles. It just happens to look scary, and if it looks scary, it must be scary.
Got you. We were supposed to be scared of big black guns.
That's it. Exactly right. Yep.
All right, so hey, as we head into today's parting shots, you guys are gonna get a kick out of this one. Um, for those of you who watch MSNBC, you know who this person is. Rachel Maddow is a flaming left wing, anti-gun, anti-American, you know, columnist or commentator on MSNBC. And what you see in this particular quote, I find to be interesting, and that's basically this, is that this is her talking about what she believes about rights. But for some reason, the right to keep and bear arms doesn't seem to be among those rights that she feels shouldn't be voted on.
Yeah, this picture it just says it all. And listen, she clearly doesn't believe the Second Amendment is a legitimate right. So that's why she can say this, because this quote of hers is meant to protect the rights she agrees with, not the rights she doesn't agree with. And listen, it's been over since 1791. The Second Amendment's been the Second Amendment. Shall not be infringed. It shall not be infringed. But that's not enough for them. You can't give that explanation to somebody that is anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment. They're going to have their own reasons. You're going to have to formulate your opinion. You're going to have to explain to them how this was for tyranny. This was for self-defense. This was to repel a foreign invasion. That the mention of the militia in there and the mention of the individual are two separate parts of the Second Amendment. I'll tell you what it says is, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The first part of the militia shall not be infringed also. There's a big comma right in the center there. Both parts shall not be infringed. They just put it together in the same right. Now, Mike, why would they do that? The same reason they put 4 or 5 different individual rights in the First Amendment. Because they were looking for a nice round number of 10.
Right. Well, the other thing that kind of gets me with this whole thing is there's a bunch of rights there that she believes that should be rights that really are nowhere in the Constitution. The right to a government-funded abortion or sex change, the right to free health care, the right to redistribute wealth from those who've earned to those who haven't, the right to be offended. It's just all of these. There's a bunch of various different things out there that folks on the left would like to be rights that, quite frankly, are just have no real basis in either our Constitution or in just understanding basic fundamental human rights in any political philosophy. But the problem is, and this is the biggest challenge, is that when people start confusing what they want for what they have a right to, when those people then start controlling the political dynamic, that's when you wind up losing your society. And that just seems to me to be the direction that we are heading right now. And it is very, very scary to me, and frustrating, because it's just, I don't understand how people don't see it.
Yeah, listen, a lot of people are blind. They will watch people like Rachel Maddow and take everything that she says as the gospel. It came from them. It must be true. I forget what political commentator said it, but they said, she's such an angry little boy. And I know they're making fun of her appearance, but also she has that mentality of a child, where you see, something will come across the desk and you'll just see a rapid response to it based on emotion and not based on fact. And that's the same kind of thing I'd expect to see from a 10-year-old. That's what you've got going over there. That's the kind of reporting you get, and they want you to believe everything that they say, again, as the gospel. And people are taking it hook, line, and sinker, Craig.
Well, the thing is I'm not against the idea of political commentary. I'm all for it. Fox News used to be my favorite, largely because what they would do is they had their news section and they had their news commentary section, and they didn't mix the two. What's even happened at Fox News is there's a bunch of commentary included in their news reporting. And CNN has always been like that. They've just, in the Trump era, they've literally ramped it up 1,000%. MSNBC has always done that. They've never been anything but commentary, no news, no fact, or anything like that. And for me, I just want the facts. Give me the facts. Give me the news and the information. I'm not saying I don't enjoy commentary and I don't enjoy spin, but one, I need to make sure that if you're going to do it, that it's based on fact. I don't mind an informed opinion. I don't mind an educated opinion based on facts and information. I like debate. You know, me and my brother do a left-right commentary thing all the time. I enjoy the debate, but once again, the debate has to be based on the facts. And unfortunately, folks like Rachel Maddow and a number of these other left-wing commentators, they just don't. They don't traffic in the truth. They traffic in lies.
Lies and emotion. We saw it after the Trump election. How many compilations of videos of broadcasters crying did we have to see to know that it's based on an emotion for them and not in fact and not in reality?
Well, and I don't even mind the emotion as long as it's backed by the facts. I think sometimes we as conservatives forget the emotional tie-in, because in the end, you know, political choices are buying decisions, and buying decisions, no matter what we say, are emotional. But but the emotion ought to be fortified with the facts, right?
Yeah,
and
agreed.
We do a very poor job of providing that level of emotion. And sometimes we get folks who provide the emotion and forget to provide the fact to back it up. But that's what we ought to be doing. At least that's what I believe people who we agree with ought to be doing.
Yeah. And not to say that we can't agree with others. Just bring us some facts.
Exactly. Bring us the facts. It's just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts.
Just the facts.
All right, folks. Well, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. That's going to be it for this edition of The Rundown. Please want to encourage you. Please remember, like, share, and subscribe. Help us to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube. Then we're going to start live streaming these on both YouTube and Facebook. We're also going to be able to, we're going to have some sponsors who are going to be giving away some goodies. So we need you to help us. And those, by the way, those goodies are going to be given away to our subscribers. So like, share, subscribe, like, share, subscribe.
I thought the goodies were for us.
Yeah, well, they are, but you know, we're trying to, you know, share the wealth.
Share the wealth. Got it. Like, share, subscribe, folks. Like, share, subscribe.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later.